Hello, I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Unfortunately, mass shootings throughout the United States right now are classified as an epidemic. Mariana Cordier, a local attorney here in Montgomery County, is going to discuss how the United States should and must respond to make the situation better. There's an important story. There are so many important stories in this December issue of the Beacon, but one very, very important story is about how parents and grandparents have the opportunity to gift money to their children before the new year comes. Stuart Rosenthal, editor and publisher of the newspaper, has that story as well as many others from this month's Beacon. The proposed FY17 Montgomery County budget, or education budget, really the superintendent's budget, has been revealed. And of course, our acting superintendent has money in it to raise the budget up a little bit. Shirley Brandman, who comments for us on a regular basis, is here to give us all the details. The new voting system the state of Maryland will be using in this coming election year has had a trial run this fall during the City of Rockville elections. Graciela Rivera-Oven from the county's Board of Elections was watching this very, very carefully. She's going to tell us exactly how it went and how it didn't go, and what we should do to prepare ourselves for the upcoming April primary election for the president and Congress. Mariana Cordier, welcome.
Thank you for having me back.
Boy, these mass shootings are awful, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, they're heart-wrenching.
Now, you're a criminal attorney, defense attorney. Yeah. You represent defendants who are being prosecuted.
Right.
You know, you've kind of seen it all.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen anything like what's going on right now?
No. I mean, these are distinct events that are not the norm. I mean, you're usually dealing with armed robberies, assaults. If there's a shooting, usually it's
a lot of emotion, maybe a
else.
Family squabble or something.
And it's funny because they always say, well, we need gun control to keep the guns out of the criminals' hands. And I have 18 years of being a criminal defense attorney. I can honestly tell you that most of the cases I've had, my clients unfortunately have had a gun that was obtained illegally or from a burglary, or so it doesn't keep them out of the hands. So the question really is, okay, you have possibly the potential of guns in a home where if there's domestic violence going on, it could be used.
Grab it.
Right, in the heat of the moment, and unfortunately shoot your spouse or somebody else. Children can get their hands on it if it's not properly
somebody they don't like at school, they can come and
they can take it into school as well. I mean, there's a lot of angles to the whole issue that's been raised. You have, mental health is an issue. Right. I don't know what the arguments are going to be for the defense of the Planned Parenthood shooting, but maybe there's something there for that. Then you have radicalization of individuals who feel that they have to commit these acts and that it's the right thing to do. And you have people purchasing weapons properly. You have people who have guns maybe improperly. And you have materials being obtained to create bombs that are, over-the-counter things that you can buy.
Okay.
So
it feels different though, right? I mean,
yes.
The level of terror, starting with the shootings in Paris, somebody walking into a concert, community, young people just randomly opening fire. That sense of can't stop living your life, but these unpredictable waves that just...
Well, and they don't have particularly with mass shootings, the profile of an individual who's doing that is no expectation of surviving their act.
Right.
And so they have nothing to lose.
Right.
And so the only question in their mind, their only goal is how big of an event can I actually make?
Well, let me ask you on that.
How many can I kill?
Because I'm a little confused about our turning it on Muslims, because most of the mass shootings, most of the violence in the United States, every day we're having some sort of multiple shooting, is done by white kids in Aurora. It's done in Connecticut up there. It's done in neighborhoods where there might be some drug beefs and criminal beefs and all that stuff.
But Islamic State is promising loads of these lone wolves and others around the country just going off like these most recent people.
And
like,
churches,
could be a lot more of that.
And churches in Florida and elsewhere saying we have to save the babies,
Yeah.
go take out every Planned Parenthood, go, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, certainly in terms of degrees, but it seems that this is an equal
So
opportunity, white, black.
It's almost like, okay, how seriously or should we take, or should we apply the incite to riot laws? Because at the end of the day, if you're saying, oh, we have the right to defend life by taking life and going to Planned Parenthood and shooting people, that's not correct. We can't also have, the Islamic State saying, hey, we're going to, promote you, push you, help you, give you the plan, give you the formula for doing these mass shootings to kill the Westerns.
But the reality is the American public is very clear on this issue on wanting more regulations on gun control, correct? But there's such a disconnect with the people in Washington on what people want out of our leaders to do, that as long as that part of the equation, that missing link doesn't work, nothing's going to change. I mean, literally the day after this shooting, they tried to pass a law that, whether we agree or not, whether criminals can get their hands on, but if we cannot even pass a law where criminals with a record should not be allowed, even
can't
even
restrict.
agree on something
We're under a
like
minute now.
that.
What, you want to follow up on that?
Well, I think that the conversation needs to be serious and it needs to change and really focus on the overall problem, because too many mass shootings are happening, and it's woefully evident that we are not equipped to deal with this, and we need to find a way to quickly catch up and become able to deal quickly with these situations.
330 million guns out there. Automatic weapons out there. Does the police come in? Do the police come in? I don't think that's going to be possible.
I don't think it's going to be possible with what people already own. Maybe in the future, in restricting and reducing is a way. Maybe it's not, because, like I said, it's a conversation that is a hard one to have. It's an honest one we need, and we have to do something across the board to deal with what we're facing, because, as you said, people are going to stop going to the malls, they're stop going to the movies, they're going to stop doing things if they're in danger of dying.
Okay. Wow. What an uplifting way to start. Thank you, Mariana.
Merry Christmas.
So we're going to go from there to some really important
And now for
stories.
something completely different.
Yeah. Beacon, we love the Beacon. What's going on with the Beacon?
Okay, we're talking the end of the year here. How can you give gifts to your children? How can you also pass on money in a nice tax-advantaged kind of way? So the first question is, what do you do if you want to give small amounts of stock or investments to young children? You can set up a custodial account, and you can use the various trading companies, $6.95 per trade kind of thing, and you can buy real stock, but those usually have minimums amounts, and it's a little more complicated, and it's a sort of a big deal. So there's a new website out there called Spark Gift, which allows you to give as little as $20 to an individual, and they can buy. They have 6,000 stocks they can purchase with that money, including Apple, McDonald's, and all. And so you say you can't buy a share of Apple for $20. No, but you can buy a 40th of a share of Apple for $20.
So
they'll
who
buy
gets to
you
make
fractional.
the choice? Does the
kid.
grandparent?
The kid gets you contribute the money, and they have this account, and they can choose, depending on how much money they get from other people, what stocks they want to buy and what percentage of what, and they'll take care of it for you. And all you pay is $2.95 per transaction. Now, until the end of the year. After the holiday season, there's going to be a 3% transaction fee on top of that. So if you're giving a small amount, 20, 50, 75, something like that, then it's still a really good deal. If you're going to be giving 150 or more, then you probably want to go with one of these $6.95 trades, which would be better on a percentage basis. But any of those things are sort of high percentages. But the idea is, it's an occasional gift. If you're going to do this every month, then you want to have probably a custodial account.
So you have these different avenues now, but also, what if you've got appreciated stock and you want to pass that
That's
on?
a different matter, right.
What happens there while you're living?
So this is very interesting. Well, everybody ought to know, if you, especially when the stock market's doing well like it has been lately, if you have stock that's gone up in value that you want to give to somebody, to a charity, or to something that you're giving that's deductible. If it's gone up in value and you've held it for more than a year, you're in luck, because then you can give it away and take the fair market value deduction and not pay any capital gains tax on the gain. So let's say the stock has doubled in value. If you sold the stock and then gave the money to charity, you'd have to pay tax on that gain. If you just give it to charity, you get to deduct the whole amount of the value, and they get the whole money. They don't have to pay any tax.
Is there a time limit? You have to do this within a year?
No, anytime after a year, as long as you've held it for a year and it's made money. Now, if you've held it for a year and it's lost money, you don't want to give it away that way, because you can only deduct the fair market value.
Right.
So if the fair market value's gone up, you're in clover. If it's gone down, you'd be stupid to do that. You sell it, take the loss, use the loss against other income, and then give the money to charity. So it's a little complicated.
It's just an effort to have people feel like there are ways, even if I don't have cash on hand, but I have some investments
Yes,
and I want to
right.
begin to plan for how to have that do good
Right.
in the community.
Or you just don't want to sell stock and pay the capital gains tax because it bothers you.
Yeah, but-
So this is a way to give it
But you
a
started
good
off
cause.
on this, it's a charity, but what about to a grandchild?
Though that was the other story. These are two different stories.
Okay, so you can't do it appreciated during your lifetime and have it when in
I
your estate
believe-
you can pass it on.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be deductible to you.
No, I'm talking about to a human being.
Yeah, of course you can do that.
Right,
You can,
right.
you can give appreciated stock, and I believe it has a step up in basis for that person, so that they would start with the current fair market value as well.
Okay.
But it doesn't save you on your taxes. I
Right.
just wanted to make sure that
Which is
was
what we want to
clear.
do.
Generally,
My gosh.
right.
Absolutely.
Also, there are 529 accounts, which are these college savings accounts, which a lot of states have. Maryland has, and DC and Virginia. You can contribute now in very small amounts to those too. It used to be, you considered it to be
Right.
$2,000 a year or something. You can give as little as $15 into these because there are now things called U-gifts. It's another website. Every state apparently has them. A person who has a 529 account sets up a U-gift account and gives this code number to anybody, friends, family, like a wedding registry.
And
they
it
say,
doesn't have to be a relative, it can
Anybody.
be a friend.
Yeah,
it
it
can
can be
Anybody.
anyone.
Anybody.
Yeah, it's really great.
Now, the person who gives the money can't deduct it either, but at least
Right.
they can make a nice little gift, and it's very simple. There's no fee at all for that, completely free of charge.
We're now under 2 minutes. I want to get to the spices.
Health store, yes.
I want the spice
Very
of life
interesting
here.
thing about spices and what they can do for you.
Especially the one about not having sweets.
Yes, I love this one. It's a little weird, but they took overweight individuals and they put patches on the backs of their hands, and they gave half of them lemon-scented patches and half of them vanilla-scented patches. If you had a lemon patch, it had no effect on what you ate at all. If you had a vanilla-scented patch, the average person cut their share of sweets by half over 4 months.
Oh, I want a couple of those.
Isn't that nice?
Where do you get them?
They say just buy a vanilla-scented perfume or light vanilla-scented candles in your
Yeah.
house or whatever. That the smell of vanilla satisfies your sweet tooth and makes you less likely to eat sweets. Isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
Yeah.
More.
Okay.
So
A
if
co-
I eat a vanilla cookie, that doesn't
That
count.
doesn't count. You got it. A teaspoon of ginger and dissolved in a cup of hot water with your breakfast as tea in the morning makes you feel fuller all day. You eat less all day and you burn more calories at
You
breakfast
do
by 40 calories.
ginger tea?
Ginger tea. That's right. Cinnamon. A teaspoon and a half of cinnamon every day with your food for over a period of several weeks. A number of women did this and found that they had less soreness when they exercised, that it reduced muscle soreness. All these interesting things. So read the Beacon and you'll find all these cool
We
things.
will, and there was an article in today's Post about the Washington Capitals and how each of them now has a special nutritional drink to deal with all of this, including all those nuts that you talked about a couple of years ago,
all right,
and all the
right.
nutrition. It's coming up. It's in the Post, so therefore the Beacon's only 2 years ahead of the Washington.
Is that all?
Post.
What else is new?
Stuart, thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
be right back after these messages. And we're back, Shirley Brandman. It's always great to see you, neighbor.
Thank you, Don. Great to be back.
Board of Education member, education expert on this show, and so many other things. I don't want to get you talking. We're talking about the superintendent's
Yes,
budget.
yes.
Just announced.
Just announced.
Unveiled.
Superintendent, this is how the process starts. The superintendent makes a recommendation to the Board of Education. Larry Bowers, our interim superintendent, has been with Montgomery County for 38 years. This is his 38th budget. He made a pretty compelling presentation saying that this was not asking for everything he thought our kids needed, but he thought it would put us back on the right track. So orders of magnitude. It's a $2.4 billion budget. It's a huge budget. There is an increase this year, but in Mr. Bauer's own words, it's roughly $100 million more that he's asking, but understanding that we're growing by about 2,500 students a year. Since 2007, we've added 18,000 students.
Well, just look at the construction on the 355, all those apartment complexes. When I see them, I keep thinking, schools and parking.
Absolutely.
And we also
App
haven't
County.
been keeping up with the costs.
We
over the
haven't
years,
been keeping
right?
up with the cost of the year. So since 2009, since we hit the recession, the school system has been funded at or below the maintenance of effort level, which is really bare
Right.
bones. And one thing Mr. Bowers tried to put out in his presentation is that when we talk about maintenance of effort, we may be spending the literal exact dollar amount per student, but it doesn't mean same services because it doesn't account for inflation, it doesn't
Well,
account for rising health costs. And so, you know,
It's a cut, really.
Right, and so, you know, for example, the enrollment has grown, you know, by about 12%, but we've grown our workforce by about 3%.
Right.
So when you think about what it means, people see it in their schools. Class sizes are definitely higher. We haven't done as much professional development, which we know does affect the quality in the classroom.
Sure.
We haven't invested in a lot of new efforts and initiatives that we think, as we continue to learn, will better engage our students.
Right.
So this starts to turn the corner a little bit. There is a little bit of a focus on career readiness and how do we really engage particularly secondary students. A little bit more focus on making sure that as we have students who come to us, immigrant students with limited education,
Right.
we're really getting them ready.
Good.
Definite focus again on sort of literacy and math. But I think the key issue is a recognition that, I think the message he was delivering when he unveiled this budget to the board is that we cannot continue to say, oh, we're always going to try to do more with less.
Shirley, quick question. With Stuart here, the
Yes.
Beacon, and his readership is older, no longer, they don't have kids any longer in the school system. Justify an increase in the education budget to a person who doesn't have any kids
And if I
in
may
the
just
school.
add one thing to that, at the same time as the demographics of seniors is growing even much faster than the school age demographic. So there are
Right.
more and
It
more
is-
seniors who have more and more needs too, and their budget's not going up at all.
And I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
but it's just-
look, I think we as a community need to address the fact that we are investing in our future, and it's the future of our community. I found it very compelling to read Robert Putnam's book about our kids. I think we really have to start to adopt that vision that it's not just about whether the budget is
Right.
for my child sitting in the classroom. I don't have kids in the school anymore, but the schools are an anchor in our community because it is really training the future of our community. It is really about getting students ready for what the future jobs are going to bring. When we grow older and we want to go see our doctor and we want to have people who are competent and skilled, that starts with education.
I don't think seniors have any problem with any of those arguments. I think they really want their kids and the grandkids and other people's kids and grandkids to do well. I think the question is, with growing demographics, growing numbers of people with growing needs, the pie has to get bigger. And if the pie's not getting bigger, and
That's
if
the
parts of the pie are
conversation I
getting
think we're
more,
gonna have
then
in this
other
county.
people are getting less, and that's just not fair.
But
There's
see,
not enough
that's,
balancing.
to me, that's
Yeah.
a different conversation, though. That conversation is also about priorities and where we are, and truly looking ourselves as a county in the mirror of where we're going to be in the next 20 years. And both of these populations are vital to what's going to happen to this county. You have to have good education for these kids. They're the workforce development. They're the future business people and the people who are going to invest in our
being a business
county.
owner and seeing some of the kids coming through and they're interning in my office and stuff, I'm seeing that they are educating themselves technology-wise and using it in a way that they're not learning through the schools. And a lot of the things that they're learning in school, they're not applying and it's not working. And I'm wondering in the back of my mind, I know it's happening with the universities and they're changing how they're doing the classes and the online class. Maybe there's something that to be said about changing how we're educating our children, utilizing technology to the best advantages that we can. That might actually even bring down some of the costs so we could spend it another
some of
way.
the
You have 30
investments are
seconds to
definitely-
answer all these things.
Yeah. Well, I think
That's it.
I'll
So
give
I
you
think
30
the
seconds
key-
of
So we
mine.
have
I'll
left.
give you
I
30
do
seconds
think
of mine.
we should not try to have conversations about either or because I
Right.
think we are a community that has to
Yeah.
find our way to providing the services. I
agree.
think the point Gracie makes is right though, which is an investment in our education is an investment in our economic development, and the economic well-being of the county is what's ultimately going to make all boats rise.
Because otherwise it is either or.
Otherwise,
This-
it becomes either
Right,
or
and it
conversation.
cannot be
I totally
either
agree with
or.
that. But that is the conversation we're going to have. This budget, people should know if they want to provide public comment, January 7th, January 14th, public hearings in front of the Board of Education. It will then go on, board will vote, go to the county executive and the county council.
You are great. Thank you. You got it all
My
done right on time. Thanks, Shirley. Appreciate that. And look forward to having you come back and talk more about the progress and other education issues.
Happy
and so much
to.
more. Graciela Rivera-Oven.
Hello.
Distinguished member of the Board of Elections
Yes.
in the minority. So one of the things I remember you talking about, you weren't happy with the voting machines that were in the decision made coming up
Oh, you mean for the new voting
for the
system?
new voting system.
Yes.
And now we have the new voting system.
do.
And you saw it up
Well,
close and personal.
actually,
What
I
happened?
have to say, my colleagues saw it I was
Okay.
actually out of town, but they were there. A few of them were there every day and so on. But I just want people to understand this was a very micro look into the whole voting
A little
issue.
pilot,
It was a little, yeah, it was like a little pilot. It was the city of Rockville elections.
Right.
Just to see how things worked.
Uh-huh.
There was no same-day registration, for example, or issues like
So tell
that.
us, let's bring it. So we've got if I remember correctly, we have a machine that you put stuff into, you do the voting, and you have to pull it out and then scan it. And
Cheryl had a good
I had an opportunity to see the machine today, in fact, and
Yeah.
it is challenging because there are multiple steps to complete your actual vote.
Yes. So
And it was a great success in Rockville, right?
I think. Okay, define success. Well,
No,
yes.
I
I mean,
don't know.
they got their people elected and they got sworn in and things, you know. But there's also been concern from the IT department, the state level, about the functioning, the data collection, and so on, and things being run on time. So there is some issues with it. So I guess my suggestion to the viewers that were out there would be, I think it's in your best interest if you do early voting. If now you don't need an excuse like before you had to get a doctor's note and so on to do absentee voting. I think you should do that as well.
Now you don't need the excuse, right? Anybody can do it for any reason.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
I think that would be great for seniors, so they don't have to
And a
deal
lot of
with the
seniors-
long lines.
Everybody. Who
And a lot of
wants to
seniors
spend
do
half the
Because
day?
I think the new
voting.
voting system is going to have a lot of long
Well,
lines.
I think with anything new, people have to keep in mind anything new takes time for people to get used to it. It happened when we had the last, round of the new voting system.
Sure.
And like Shirley said, there's a lot of steps to this voting. So
Okay.
and
I think the
think
challenge
that's-
is, our goal is to try to facilitate voting, right? We're trying to make it easier, and we're trying to also enhance accuracy.
Yes.
I
And
think
one of the
accuracy is the number. That's
the key.
You want to make sure that the correct people are elected because more
Right.
people voted for that person,
Right.
and that's
Right.
been the big wonder when we have electric.
So we're relying on our
Systems.
technology. The
Right.
one short anecdote that I can share is that on these new machines, as you're completing a particular question or voting for a list of candidates, the choices may not all fit on one page.
Wow.
And so there's a button at the bottom that says more. And you cannot proceed until you hit more, but you may not realize when you're looking at that first
Right.
screen
That those
what the
are-
additional
right.
information is there. And I think there will be some confusion. I think we really have to make clear to people that they need to read in advance, be as familiar as they can be with these machines if they're going in to vote, and really hope that the folks on the ground are going to answer
So
questions.
maybe with a large number, it's gotten scaled down now. All those Republicans who are running for president, you would have had to do more and more to get
Exactly.
to all. I guess luckily. maybe
And
some
what's
people
also
didn't have
interesting is that
ballot.
a lot of the counties, none of the counties got extra money to do outreach to the community to teach. I mean, a lot of this is done with our budget and our funding and so on, which is interesting because if you're going to change a whole system in the whole state, you will think then that the state
There'll be some education.
Exactly.
We need to do that, right?
Some
But
outreach.
so we're going to have some problems probably in some of the smaller counties around the state. You think?
I think there's
Especially-
going to be some glitches. We'll see how early voting starts on April 16th, and I think that's a really good time for people to actually go. And remember, during early voting, you're also going to be able to do same-day registration. So we don't know how that's going to play
One
out.
question I have: we're one of about 3,300 counties in the country. We're one of 50 states, as you know, and then
We
we've got
are.
other places.
Yes.
They all vote. They all have systems. Why is it that when we bring a new system in, it's like they're designing all of this from scratch for us?
That's a good question.
Instead of having, why are we having the kinks out here? Why aren't the kinks going, in New York or Pennsylvania or some other state?
Well, in a lot of states like
Or counties.
Washington, Seattle, and so on,
Right,
a
it's
lot
all
of
mail-in.
it's all it's all by mail.
Right.
So it's I guess each.
That's
to
not what I'm
its
talking
own.
about. I mean, why are we buying systems that have already been proven
Tested,
themselves,
right.
tested? Why are we like this?
Good question. That's the question I have, so I
Right.
sorry I can't answer.
And what's the response been?
The response from is because apparently we want to have an efficient voting system and we want to have paper trail, which is the main concern that was brought out by the previous systems, right? You want to have.
But it really is important to point out that this initial paper that you put in where you think you're voting on the screen, it actually literally doesn't count till you scan it in.
Okay.
Right.
So your watchword's going to be scan it in. That's our final word. Scan it in.
And be patient.
And be patient.
Patiently.
And early
vote.
voting.
Early vote.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay, and make sure everybody knows what's going on. Beacon's going to lead the way on there. Thank you guys for joining me today. This has been great. You've been great guests, and thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers, and like every week, I invite you to join us again next week at this very same time.